Hi, welcome. In this video, I'd like to discuss what makes this system of training different in the way that it approaches the process, approaches resolving behavior issues. Now, when I talk about interaction-based, okay, interacting with a dog in specific ways that is going to cause the perceptions to change from dog to the dog owner in terms of dogs as social animals, in terms of how their decision-making process is governed at that level, dogs as pack animals, okay, is understanding, again, drawing a comparison, okay, when you look at, okay, how do I kind of line this up, where Dale's approach does seem different, he talks different about it, it seems different, is the same thing. I use the parenting example often to help people understand why it is that what's popular out there doesn't line up, okay, why it is that all these trainers, I just grouped them all in as mainstream dog trainers, are seeking to motivate dogs using a motivating agent. And understand, this is like an entrenched, okay, thing. That's all, they can't seem to get their mind out of it. Why they need to approach it different. They're just like, how can I motivate a dog to respond and just sell it, right? Whereas I'm saying, hold on here a second, okay? Dogs are amazing animals, okay? I appreciate the level of understanding, insight it takes to reconcile, make sure things are going to truly move along in the right direction. But in terms of, again, making comparison here and looking at, again, back to my selfish child example, is to be no different, okay, than having a parent interact with a already selfish child in specific ways that's going to change the perception from child to parent, okay, to establish parental influence, to fade the parent in the right way, okay? So what I'm advocating here is depth, okay, in terms of investing, properly in the relationship. What's happening here in the dog training world, just understand, there's none of that, okay? It's just like jumping into it. Let's not even put any dots together here. Let's not even consider that this is just a superficial thing that we're doing, and let's forget that we're assuming that things are moving a certain direction based on having the dog do the sit down, come and stay. Let's just, it doesn't matter. Let's just go with that. I mean, that's what's happening. And to consider if you were to do that with an already selfish child, because that's what these trainers are doing. So to get your head around this system is understand that the system of training, okay, approaches it differently in a good way. So when I talk about, and this is hard for people, I understand, especially for trainers who are sold into this very popular culture, this popular idea of training, of a process, is that when you talk about, a motivator, but response, right? What I'm saying is, no, think different, okay? Think about, even consider the role of influence itself. How do you actually make sure that meaningful influence is going to take place between dogs and owners? How are you going to make sure that the motives that underpin response are going to align properly? How are you going to make sure that this is going to line up? How are you going to make sure that, that truly a dog's going to release control, which is directly connected to behavioral issues? How are you going to make sure that that's all going to clean up the way that it needs to? Okay? And so when I talk about a motivator, okay, you have to think different. So what it is the dogs, okay, based on these interactions, based on what they represent, based on, okay, the consistency of how they're coming about, based on their reasonableness, okay? Because people will look at this and say, well, if Dale's interacting with a dog, it must mean that he's alpha rolling dogs, or he's putting undue influence on dogs. Because understand, and this is the deception, right? Is people are so far over to the left, right? And they're just hands off, and they're using treats, and they're motivating these dogs, that anything that, okay, is works beyond appearances, right? It challenges them to think, well, it must mean this. No, okay? Just think about parenting, right? When you interact with your child in specific ways as a parent, does that mean that that's abusive, or that you're doing abusive things? Absolutely not. Okay? There may generate a level of conflict, okay, based on how selfish the child is, right? Because they're not going to be too responsive at first. But again, it's about the reasonableness of what you're doing, and doing things that make sense, that they're going to come into agreement with. So these interactions, what they represent to the dog, is based on, okay, how influence is intersecting these interactions, based on how, when you see me bringing dogs under influence, you see I'm not pushing hard on the dogs, okay? I'm guiding them in to these positions, but it's not position based. It's the interactions that are, okay, lining it up. Understand what I'm focused on. This is why when trainers look at my videos, they basically lose their mind, because they're like, my timing seems to be off to them, because I'm not marking a response, because that response isn't what people think it is. It's not about behavior changing, right? And so I'm engaged in a whole different, I'm on a different wavelength. And this is why people look at this and say, well, Dale's not rewarding for, the dog, hitting a certain position, because that's nonsense, okay? It's not about, that's superficial, right? That's appearance based. They're trying to suggest, or they're assuming that represents behaviors. No, it's a response. It's a completion of a response, but just a response. And so how do these trainers even know what's happening? They don't, okay? So I'm not tuned into that, right? So it's the interaction part of it. It's how influence is manifest, how it's intersecting those interactions the dog is agreeable to, so it's motivated to come into agreement with those. And if you watch the dog's head turning inwards to me slightly, okay, you'll see how I'm dialed in. So the dog as the dog accepts these interactions, these are the follower moments. So these are building blocks of change. Understand that they are what, okay, will influence the dog's overall decision-making process. So it's your building block, so it affects the moment you're in. And as these moments, they pile on top of each other, it begins to affect the dog's overall decision-making process by way of the dog releasing control, perception of the dog changing from dog to owner. That's what lines it up, okay? That's what, so they're consistent. So the dog is agreeable, so that's why you don't even use commands. So when I'm not saying commands, again, another challenge, right? People lose their minds. They're like, why isn't Dale saying? Because it's under apply critical thinking. If you're already in a position of weakness and you use commands, ask yourself the question, what is the dog's responding? What's motivating that? What's the underlying motives there? What based on perception? How you actually change the perception of the dog when you do that? Say everything has a reason. When this system of training is very intentional, people do not understand the level of critical thinking that went into the system. A lot, okay? People just assume things based on how they're thinking, but I would encourage people to think different, and you're gonna see incredible change with your dog, okay? Think different. That's the key. This system of training is totally on a different wavelength in a good way. It's a complete system. It's a proven system. I've been using the system for over 20 years. The reason people don't like it, the dog training community, is because they're sold out. Okay, they're on a whole, they're appearance driven. But again, I would encourage people to take everything I say and apply it to my example in terms of dealing with a selfish child, a challenging parenting situation. And if you were to do what these trainers are doing, it makes complete sense why this doesn't align for so many people. But that's what's happening. So understand, the system of training is unique. It's different. It's about fixing the relationship side of things first, and then you can get it on all the fun stuff. Okay, you understand that what I'm dealing with here. I'm helping people whose dogs are gaining control. So the interactions have to take the right form. I'm not rewarding dogs for a state of mind that is about assuming that things. No, don't do that. Okay. You have to understand that what you're doing, the positive, is you take the stress loads off the dog. The dog is releasing stress. When I'm doing this method and dogs are standing there and going into these positions after I'm bringing them under influence, and you see them, the stress is coming off these dogs. These dogs, some of them fall asleep on their feet. They feel so good. So even when I have dogs here on a board and train, immediately they're on their backs, they're hanging out. The stress is coming off them like crazy. They feel good because everything makes sense. Everything's moving in the right direction, okay? Because it's all lining up. Nothing is getting in the way of that. They're not holding on to control through that. Don't get me wrong, there's a transition. It's not like instant, right? But it's all heading in the right direction. Because again, what this system of training represents. So again, I encourage you, if you look at this system of training, you feel like it's, you can't quite get your head around it, think about my parenting example. It makes complete sense. This system of training truly does advocate properly, okay? I love dogs. But at the same time, okay, just like if you're dealing with a parenting problem, okay, you have to make sure that you're advocating properly. You have to suspend your emotions that way temporarily until things line up. You have to focus on change. You have to focus on fixing the problem. You can't get caught up in that stuff. So, because coming on the other side, because here's the thing, if you don't do it right, if you engage in this type of superficial narrative, You might love your dog, like have an emotion, everything, and you're gonna be very upset because things are gonna change, and then you have to make some decisions that you don't want to make with your dog. So you don't want to go there. You want to make sure you things are gonna go in the right direction. You truly love your dog. Really look at what I show. It's a clear path to change. Thanks for watching.